Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's sermon.
Welcome to the MuseCast. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We've got the rough and rowdy crew, as per usual today. By rough and rowdy, I mean Shawna and Dan Kent. Hello, hello. We're not really rough and rowdy, are we, Dan? We're just kind of
pretty more goofy and silly than anything, really.
Than anything, yeah. Super goofy, super silly. Dan, I want to ask you, and this is not meant to rub it in the noses of folks who are not local or who are not able to be here, but we did have the opportunity to have like this full-on all-church picnic on Sunday, and that was really fun. And you got to be there, and we were on the serving line, you know, like good troopers. What was most enjoyable to you about that whole Sunday experience?
Yeah, there was so much that was enjoyable about that. Where do we even start? I was impressed. I mean, obviously it was good to see people again, but I was just impressed at the sheer mass of people. I mean, there were so many people who came to our picnic, and it was really fun to sit in line. And I was handing out shells because we made tacos, and so I was handing out shells and just to say hi to everybody and just get little connections and, you know, hey, I saw you on the MuseCast. We watched the MuseCast. That's great. And, someone talking about a sermon I did a few months ago, and that's really fun to, because they watched from home. So they, it would, in the old days, you would give a sermon, and if somebody had a thought or a reflection, they would come up and talk to you. And now with live streaming, sometimes that interaction doesn't happen until several months later at a picnic. And I love that so much. And you know how it is too, when we're doing this, it's like, we're just throwing this stuff out into the void. We have no idea how it's going to land. And so it was really, really nice. I even had somebody who was just like surprisingly loved these little haikus that I share on Instagram, and that probably thrilled me the most because I love writing haikus. So, but yeah, I mean, how about you? What did you think of it, and what was your favorite part about it?
Oh my goodness, yeah, it was so fun. I felt like every time I got a chance to look up from the serving line, like the line, like there were still people waiting, and I know we fed over 400 folks, which is so cool, right?
Yeah.
And not everyone was local. We had some of our congregation in attendance, some folks from Alabama and from around the Twin Cities, and it was just really fun. I showcased my talent by being ambidextrous. Ambidextrous, is that right?
It's close. It's close to right.
Okay. Well, I'm super right-handed, but I was doing beans and rice. And so I was like literally scoop the beans, scoop the rice.
Wow.
And so just like boom, 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 getting after it. So people admired your haikus. They admired my ability to plop some beans and plop some rice onto their plate.
That's amazing. That was good food too, wasn't it?
It's good food.
Man.
Yes. You know, Mexican food is my absolute favorite, so I will never turn down a taco. All of its goodness. So it was really.
I'll just say this too. It was really nice because I feel like it's a weird weekend for us because it's our fall kickoff, and so like all these things are starting. We have the picnic, but also it was September 11th this weekend. And so there's a lot of there's, people sharing their grief and their memories and stuff like that. And so it was really nice to have the picnic on that weekend as well. And it just sort of like, I don't know why, but it just kind of balanced out, just a tough weekend. So kind of made it all worthwhile.
I totally agree with that. And I feel like we've said before, like so many times you can go like stretches of days and days and days, sometimes weeks, where it just feels like chaos and bad news and, conflict and tension, like just swirling all around. So to have a moment, just to be there together safely outside, it ended up being a really nice day. to laugh and just, break bread. It was just it felt really good. And I was really thankful for it. I was exhausted afterwards. I was so tired.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I napped when I got home, and I don't nap all the time. So
yeah.
Let me just share one thing really quick, and then we'll get to the sermon and the message. I promise.
We will.
But I think like the September 11th stuff was on my mind and my heart, because the night before, on Saturday night, as I was waking up Sunday morning, I was waking from this dream, and in this dream, I think I was in a hospital because there were nurses there, and there was this alarm that just kept going, and people were running around, and they were all terrified and scared. And this alarm was going, "Fweet, fweet, fweet." And I'm asking people, "Hey, what's wrong? What's wrong?" And no one knew, but they were all terrified, and they were running around, and that fweet, fweet. And then as I woke up, I realized that my nose was whistling with each inhale. Fweet, fweet, fweet. And so there was no danger after all, but the people in my dream didn't know. Yeah, the people in my dream had no idea. So
yeah. So what I get out of that is we need to pray for Barb extra hard, because your nose is making all those noises.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. It gets dry this time of year. And so, you got to kind of manage all of that stuff, to control certain snoring. And we don't have to bring Barbara into this. She'll share things that I don't want her to share about my snoring.
We won't have her on the show then. Like an expose in the life of Dan.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's remarkable to think that it's been 20 years and
oh my goodness.
All the emotions that go with that. I mean, of course, I think like most people who are of a certain age around that time, meaning if you weren't like a child or a baby, you probably most likely remember very clearly where you were and how you found out and just how you saw it all unfold. And it's just, it's incredible. Incredible. Before that picnic, though, that we've been talking about thus far, we had a service in which we heard a sermon from the good Dr. Gregory Boyd, in which he kicked off our new series, The Lost Art of Friendship. And so he just kind of laid out the introduction of the series and talked in particular about having a friendship with God, which was really refreshing and encouraging. And so I cannot wait, Dan Kent, to hear your summary.
Yeah, it's as far as sermories go, it's pretty simple, but I think it has a lot of profundity to it that as you kind of reflect on it, I think for me at least, it really kind of it was one of those sermons that just I don't know, it was like yeast and it kept rising throughout the last couple of days. So, but yeah, this is basically what he says. He starts off by talking about the current kind of pandemic of loneliness that we're experiencing in the world. And even to the extent that in Europe, they have a government position called the Minister of Loneliness, which also sounds like a great rock band, by the way. But anyway, that's a different thing. But he just talked about how like right now, so many people are struggling with loneliness. And I got to tell you, I invited some people over this weekend on Saturday, and just like people who follow me on Twitter, who I know that they're local, they follow Woodland Hills or they follow Greg's ministry, and I just invited them over to just talk about God. And most of these guys, there's probably 5 total I'd never met before, and I just kind of knew them on Twitter. But I'm like, I got to meet these people in person, and I wasn't expecting it to be as kind of enriching as it was. We had no script. We had no like, okay, question 3, what's your favorite color? Nothing like that. We just sat around and we just talked naturally, and we had conversation, and it felt so good that it really kind of made me think that, maybe I was also kind of burdened with some loneliness as well, because, normally something like that wouldn't feel as good as it felt. It was just so fun. And so I think that it's a problem that is big enough where the governments are starting to understand that this is a significant problem. And I would even say that it might even be a problem for people who don't even know that it's a problem. And so we're kind of doing this series to talk about friendship and how that might alleviate some of the loneliness that people are experiencing. But Greg kind of talks about biblically how loneliness is a fundamental kind of risk of humanity, and he shares he starts off by sharing in Genesis, God's first kind of like concern for us was that it was not good for people to be alone, he says, and so he created others, and really kind of what he's getting at there is that we were created to be connected with people in relationship, not just acquaintances. We're not just we're supposed to have real relationships, and that includes, and this is what's so profound, God even says that's the type of relationship that I want with my people, that you should have with me, your creator, that you should have this sort of like more deep, robust relationship. And you see this in Jesus's teaching where he contrasts the relationship that he wants with like a master-servant relationship. He says, I do not call you servants, I call you friends. And that's so profound because, a master-servant relationship, that's just an association that has to do with roles and duties. And but with friends, there's like this deeper connection there. It's a much more profound sort of thing. And that a master can command somebody to do something, and they will usually do that, but it's very different in nature than the type of thing that we do for our friends. When we do things for our friends, we feel this compulsion to help and to serve and to love, and we don't have to be asked a lot of times. We just want to do it, and when we are asked, we celebrate that and we want to help our friends. Whereas in other relationships, like in a master-servant relationship, that's more kind of forced, and it's a duty. And so Paul says that he is compelled by the love of Christ to be obedient, and I just think that's really profound. And yeah, so that's what God calls us. He says, I no longer call you servants, but I call you friends. And so then Greg talked about how that kind of reframes everything, where I'm not like this, person who is, trying to please God and obey God and be like a good servant, but rather God wants us to just kind of be buddies. And so he talked about, like, for him personally, he in his meditations, he talked about how, he says that in him I live and move and have my being. In God I live and move and have my being. And this week he's been saying, in my friend I live and move and have my being. And I think that, and he talks about the warmth of a friend, and I think of that too. Like, I think of some of my friends back, 15, 20 years ago, even friends that I've known for a long time. And I think back on those times, and like, I think of, like, Randy and Kevin, their brothers, and I would kind of go over to their house, and there was just this feeling in the whole house that I was at my friend's house, and there was this whole ambiance created whenever I did something with them. And there is like this thing that I live and move and breathe in when I'm with my friends, and it, like, it's enriching. It's it fills my heart. It compels me to want to be a better person even. And that's what God offers us with our relationship with him. And I just think that's super profound. What did you think? What was your takeaway from it?
Yeah, it was so interesting because the statistics that Greg shared, I knew those because we have used those in the spiritual friendships class that we've done. So by we, I mean Paul, Eddie, Rob Kistler, and myself have piloted the spiritual friendships course a couple of times in this last year. And so some of those statistics we've pulled out and used. And so to be reminded of that was really good. And I found it to be interesting that during the pandemic, I'm sure those things have escalated for sure. To circle back though to the picnic, it was a fascinating thing, and it ties together like this, like what you were just saying about having those people over and just engaging and how good that felt. Like, I had the opportunity when we were done with all of our service duties. On Sunday, I had the opportunity to go and sit down for a little bit with a couple of people that have been in classes that I facilitated with my husband, Scott, and are now in gathering groups, and just to kind of connect with them in person. And that was really, it just felt really good. And then we had a couple of people who are visiting, who are part of Woodland. They're part of our pod irrigation, but they were visiting. And so we were able to have them over that night. And as exhausted as I was, it felt really good to engage in those interpersonal relationships again, and to be with friends in such a sweet and fulfilling way. And it reminded me of just a simple idea that everyone desires friendship of some sort. We all desire belonging and connection, but many times we don't value the belonging and connection with friends, with friend groups. We kind of can, if conflict comes up, we can cast it aside, or if too much time passes by, those relationships are easy to walk away from sometimes. And to hear to hear that God desires friendship with us, to me, reminded me of the high value of friendship. So it was like kind of two tracks, right? Like friendship with God. How cool is that? Like he doesn't see us as a servant or as someone that he's just looking to correct all the time, or just, using us to get stuff done. Like he desires that kind of really cool relationship with us, is beautiful. And then that to me says friendship is important.
Yeah.
It's important to God, and it should be important to us, that we would, like, I think the way Greg put it was like, that our lives would be interwoven with others, to an extent to where we're caring for one another, and really, bonding with other people and spending time with them and helping them and encouraging them, and just all the beautiful things with friendship. And so it just seemed like this perfect bouquet of, we got to be with friends, and we got to learn about friends, and then ultimately realize that, gosh, God desires friendship with us. And no longer do we need to look at it as like master servants. Yes, he is Lord, but he's friend as well. And that was just a really cool reminder, and a little bit of a deeper dive into that, which I loved.
Yeah.
So cool.
It's so profound. And I think the Apostle Paul sort of captures the profundity, or he starts to get at it in Philippians, where Philippians 2, I think 6, where he says that Christ did not consider equality with God something to be grasped and to use for his own advantage, but rather became nothing, took on the nature of a human, and just that the extent that God goes to in order for us to be able to connect with him as a friend. It would be tough. It would be tough to like if God came down as a big ball of fire and burned and glowed and filled the room with bright lights, and you kind of walk around him and you have to wear sunglasses because of his glorious holiness. It's like you wouldn't really be able to just hang out and just talk about, isn't that a funny looking fish? I mean, you'd just be like overwhelmed with God's glory. And so you think of like all of what he did to just so that we could be friends with him, even to the extent that, I love at the Last Supper when Peter is reclining against Jesus, it's just like, no big deal. I'm just kind of reclining here against God.
My bud.
And it's just like how powerful that is, like that he goes to this extent so that he can have this just casual, it's like there's like a holy casualness about this, where we can just talk. We don't have everything doesn't have to be about obedience and rules and commands. We can just kind of hang out, and I think that's so profound. In fact, I think what it suggests to me, like, if we can go a little deeper, I think that it really emphasizes the importance of human autonomy. In order for God to have an agape love relationship with us, we have to have genuine autonomy and say so. And in order to have genuine autonomy and say so, then God must allow us to push back against God, because that's what friends do. When God says, I no longer call you servants, but I call you friends, that's saying something about our potential, but it also says something about God's vulnerability toward us. And that's why you see this throughout the Old Testament. Even before Jesus says this, you see the friendship of God all over the place in the Bible. And you think of this, like friends will coach their friends. And what's so profound is there are times in the Old Testament where people will coach God. And the time I'm thinking of is, I think God is going to destroy a town, and I think it's Lot who starts saying, well, would you destroy this town if there, no, I'm sorry, it's Abraham. Would you destroy this town if there were, if there were 50, righteous people there? Well, what about one righteous person? He starts to kind of coach God, and that's so profound. And, friends will bargain with their friends about things. And you see this as well. And the example that comes to mind is Hezekiah, who, this angel of the Lord tells him that you're going to die in a couple of years. And Hezekiah's like, well, just give me 15 years. And God acquiesces and says, all right, fine, I'll give you 15 years. And friends tell friends what is right. And, I think of Exodus. Here, I have this verse here I want to read. This is just, to me, is just so profound. This is Exodus 32. And Moses is saying this to God. Why should the Egyptians say it was with the evil intent that God brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to wipe them off the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce anger, Lord, relent and do not bring disaster on your people. And so here, like, Moses is like, basically saying, God, what you're about to do, that's not right. And it's just amazing that as part of the narrative, God acquiesces to this. And then also friends, just kind of speak without reserve to their friends. And you see that as well. And my favorite example of that is in Job, when, Job is saying speaking all this nonsense, basically.
All the things,
right? And he's just going off. And God's just like, man, you're speaking out of your mind. You have no idea what you're talking about. However, you are still speaking right, because you are speaking direct. You're being honest, you're being forthright. And the fact that God welcomes that is just, that's what a friend does. And so you just see the friendship of God in so many profound ways. And I just think it's a paradigm shift, I think, for a lot of people to think of God in this way.
Absolutely. And the thing that I love is that, and we said it out loud on Sunday, is that this is actually maturity. This is spiritual maturity, to relate to God in this friendship way. Because so many times, I don't know about you, but like, I have heard that narrative of, well, friendship with God, that's more like childlike faith. And that's more like something that you do to help kids understand and want to know God a little better or whatever. But no, actually, to look at God as friend is actually a sign that you have matured in your faith, that you are relating to him freely as one who is beloved of him, but also has value. And I think it circles back to the last series we were talking about, evangelism, right? All throughout the evangelism series, we were talking about partnership with God. Well, you know what? It makes it much easier to gain that, to grasp that concept of partnership if you're seeing it as partnership with your friend, right? Not like partnership with a master. That's a little harder. Like, is that really a partnership? I don't know. But partnership with a friend, a beloved friend, that makes sense. And that's something that you can pursue and you can play out in your life. And so I think I'm really excited that we are delving into this, and not just like as a one-off sermon, like we're doing a whole series on this. And I think that speaks to the importance and the value of friendship with God and with others.
Indeed. Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be great. The other thing that, because when you think of like the friendship, and this is why I think it's more mature, is that there's a lot of stuff that comes up, like personally, like, am I worthy of being a friend to God? I mean, it's kind of like, you think of like, you see all these hot shots come, like, I think there's like the Video Music Awards are on right now, and you see all these
the
celebrities.
VMAs. Yeah.
You see these celebrities on the red carpet, and they have like their posse, with them, and you think, who's this posse? Who are these people who get to hang out with these celebrities? And there's just, in our world with all the hierarchy, and there's like these personal worth questions come up, and multiply that infinitely, and you have like, who's going to be a friend with God? And God's calling all of us to be that. We're all part of that posse on this red carpet, and so you can't help but question, well, am I really worthy of that? And that's where, when Paul or when Greg shared that God is not holding anyone's trespasses against them.
Yeah.
I think the reason why that's good news for us is because I think we have self-doubt. Like, I'm not worthy of being friends with God. And God's like, you've got some baggage, but I'm not holding that against you. Come on over here. Come to the picnic, come to the party. Let's go on the red carpet together. And it's, and I just think that's so utterly profound.
I love it. I love it so much. All right. Well, as we're nearing our time and at the end of this conversation, I'm going to just share one last little reflection nugget, and I'm giving Dan time to come up with his, because I always put him on the spot. He's like, wait, I just said the meaty thing.
Right.
Say one more, Dan.
Okay.
But I think I just think about the verse when it talks about being compelled. And if you are in that place where Dan just talked about, and I think we've all been there, like, I am not worthy to be a friend with God. And maybe it's even more comfortable to just think of him as Lord and sovereign, and just, and you're just his humble servant. I get that. But man, God is inviting you into something bigger and grander and more intimate and beautiful. And so I encourage you to be compelled to strive after that. And if you're not there yet, ask God for help, because he would love to draw you in closer. And not only that, like this beautiful friendship with God, once you are there, allow the overflow of that to flow into others. Because I just think if we all treated others and our closest relationships and our friendships, if we treated them as if God were truly in the midst of them, and we are relating to others out of the overflow of our friendship with God, how much cooler and more amazing would those already precious relationships be? So I'm really going to be focusing this week on that word compelled, compelled by love for God and for others to really engage in this friendship concept thing. Yeah.
All
right, Dan.
Well, first of all, that is a really, really good kind of, I'm trying to think of what it is. It's like a good reflective kind of meditative exercise for the week. I think that's really, really good. I don't know if I have anything like that. I'm still stuck on some of this abstract stuff, so I don't know how practical. I don't know how practical this is, but I will say this. I think that, have you ever been reading the Bible and you read something, all of a sudden you start crying? Have you had that happen? I have too. And one of the times that happened was reading in Matthew chapter 8, verses 2 and 3. And this is where Jesus heals the leper. And it's so weird. I was reading the NRSV, and that's the translation that really hit me. Even though the other translations, they mean the same thing, for some reason, the language in the NRSV really hit me. And the leper comes to Jesus and says, Jesus, I know that if you choose, I can be clean. And Jesus looks at the man and says, I do choose, be clean. And that is just there's something about that I do choose. And that's what friendship is. Friendship is different than, a Lord and a servant, where that's just the hierarchical relationship and that's the structure of society. It's different than a marriage where you marry the person and you're stuck together. It's like friendship is constantly chosen. And God doesn't love us because God is holy. He has to love us. He chooses to love us. He delights in us. And so he chooses to love us. And that's, I think, when Jesus says, I no longer call you servants, but friends, he's saying, I'm choosing to love you because I delight in you. And there's something really empowering about the fact that God chooses to love me as a friend. And it's not like forced. It's because he delights in us. And just meditating on that is just it really reorients a lot of things, and it really reorients things in the way that you were talking about with your meditation. It kind of gets me fired up to think along those lines. So
that was beautiful, Dan. Beautiful. Just the vulnerability of the leper, and then the graciousness of Jesus. I do choose, and he chooses us, and we get to choose friendship with him. I love it. Well, thank you all for tuning in. We love the MuseCast, and we love hearing from you guys. And we are thankful for when we do get to see you face to face, that you mention how you watch the MuseCast and different things. So we are just plumb as peach. Pleased as peach. Pleased as something. I don't know.
Plum as peach. We're apple as banana.
We're I ruined this really beautiful moment. I'm so sorry.
I love it.
Anyway, we're thankful and we're grateful for you, and we cannot wait to continue the discussion next week. Don't forget to tune in this weekend. It's going to be good, and we'll see you all next Tuesday for the next episode of the MuseCast. Have a good one, everyone.